I'm 4'7". I am not shrinking and I can't permit myself to shrink. Otherwise, you are not going to see me. You are only going to hear me. Anybody here who has a partner, tonight a different position.
Her size, her age. She turned 75 this Wednesday. The accent, the subject matter.
Then we have one more specifically about orgasm or erections.
Taken together, these might seem unlikely ingredients for celebrity.
Let's welcome to our stage, Dr. Ruth.
Not when the celebrity is Ruth Westheimer. The word old is not in her vocabulary.
Here is something which has to do with relationship and sexuality.
And for all those nice people her age who think their sex lives are over, she's got some startling advice.
I'm very conscious that many people are alone. So that's why I talk about masturbation. If you feel that sexual tension, go out, buy a vibrator. It doesn't have to be the one that I'm suggesting. It can be any vibrator.
Masturbation, vibrators. She's pretty certain nobody else is talking to seniors about that sort of thing.
I'm very grateful that they don't walk out. That size has nothing to do with the sexual satisfaction of a woman.
Hearing it from a little German Jewish grandmother is exactly why they don't walk out. She was born Carola Ruth Siegel in Frankfurt, Germany. Her parents sent her to Switzerland when she was 10 in order to save her from the Nazis. For the next 6.5 years, she worked as a servant in a Swiss boarding school, scrubbing floors and cleaning toilets. She never saw her parents again.
Reading passages from your diary that are in your autobiography made me cry to think how lonely and how sad at times it really was.
First of all, I'm very glad that you cried, because it's better if you cry than if I would cry. But I did that autobiography for a reason. I said, I'm grateful that I'm alive, and I have an obligation to contribute something to this world, because otherwise, why was I spared? And last night I danced with the chef of the Four Seasons. So you sit home and cry, and I go out and dance.
More than 20 years ago, before she became a fixture on television, before anybody had ever heard of Dr. Ruth.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Ruth Westheimer. Our program
Ruth Westheimer, an unknown sex therapist with a PhD in education, agreed to go on the radio in order to preach about birth control and unwanted pregnancies.
Call the Planned Parenthood Center, tell them.
I didn't start saying, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do radio. How can I ever do that? I said, I'll try. That's my philosophy of life.
She started out doing her earnest little 15-minute broadcast every week at midnight.
So if at times your wife doesn't feel like engaging in sex, don't pressure her.
But then NBC decided to turn it into a 2-hour call-in show.
Me and my husband have been having sexual problems for quite a while.
What's the problem?
Okay.
And the rest, as they say, was history.
Welcome to Good Sex with Dr. Ruth Westheimer.
She became an overnight sensation at the age of 52.
The word is snuggling. You know what that is? Mm-hmm. That is just hugging and kissing.
She discovered she liked being Dr. Ruth, but even now talks about herself as if Dr. Ruth is somebody else.
Very smart, because sometimes I do say the Dr. Ruth thing. I tell you why. Because there is one thing that is Ruth Westheimer, the mother, the grandmother, the person. There is another thing that is this television thing, Dr. Ruth, but very often it does merge.
Dr. Ruth isn't strictly a sex therapist anymore. She has become an entire industry. From a shampoo commercial
If you think that's great, try the body wash.
to Dr. Ruth's game of good sex, videos for Playboy, 21 books offering advice on just about everything. As long as she feels her serious message about sex isn't being compromised, Ruth Westheimer is willing to have fun with being Dr. Ruth.
Dr. Ruth, the renowned Dr. Ruth is in the house today.
She's even put out a CD, Dr. Ruth reading Little Red Riding Hood to music.
The wolf pushed open the door and he sprang upon the old lady and swallowed her whole in one gulp.
To spend time with Dr. Ruth is to get sucked into the whirlwind of her energy.
I don't want you to fall, but I walk very fast.
At Toys R Us in New York City,
Thank you.
she could hardly wait till she'd finished reading Little Red Riding Hood to head for the Ferris wheel.
Okay, bye.
The ride was like a metaphor for Dr. Ruth Westheimer's life.
This is fun.
The giddy highs made sweeter by how tough the lows were.
Whoever waves has good sex.
She says she's like a particular German doll. If you knock it down, it bounces right back up.
In German, that's called ein Stehaufmännchen, which means it has lead in its feet. So even if somebody knocks it down, because that's what life does, it gives you some knocks. It does all kind of things that you did not expect, like taking a husband with a stroke that he couldn't recover from. But I have an ability, and I will not know where it comes from, to get up on my feet again.
Her husband of 38 years, Fred Westheimer, died 6 years ago.
Not that I'm not sad, not that I'm not mourning, but I can get on my feet.
She was on her feet and very pleased when we caught up with her in a Florida bookstore. She knows audiences expect Dr. Ruth to dispense sex with a smile.
At every red light, I want you women to do the Dr. Kegel exercise, contracting and relaxing the vaginal muscle. Then I want you to look into the car next to you and wink.
But when she talks about cancer, it's no laughing matter.
I have a homework for men. Every man has to examine his testicles once a month. We do not talk about that. We talk only about women examining their breasts.
What is it that everybody loves about Dr. Ruth?
She's one of us. She speaks to us, not above us. I don't approve of porno at all. That's dirty. And sex is not dirty. That's what she's doing. She's making it clean.
She swears she doesn't usually do this,
Okay. Thank you very much.
but she'd scheduled 3 book signings, a charity breakfast,
Thank you.
and 7 lectures in 5 days.
Boy, some of these people walk so slow.
This almost 75-year-old woman.
I do believe that any sexually literate couple can be sexually active until the age of 99. I don't want to say 120. When I say 100, I say 99.
She includes herself.
I read that you're looking for a boyfriend.
I'm looking not just for one friend. Don't say boyfriend. I'm too old for boyfriend. I'm certainly here on CBS television. I certainly am looking for interesting companionship. So you have
Sexual companionship?
everything. So you have to promise me, if after this broadcast, if you get letters,
Thousands of emails?
whatever you get, I want to hear. You can sift through. I'll tell you what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Has to be interesting. Has to be somebody who doesn't sit and says, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I don't care if he works or not, because all I care about that he is engaged in life. He doesn't have to have money. I have enough money. I don't have to get married.
Younger
And-
or older?
That's a bit difficult question. I can't answer that. It has to be
So is
somebody
Dr. Ruth in the market for a boy toy? We can be sure about this. He'll need a positive attitude and a good pair of running shoes to keep up with her.